Captain Jack Miller stared at the endless black of space through the main view screen of the Indomitable. 15 years of patrolling the outer edge of human space, and not once had they encountered anything more exciting than the occasional asteroid field. The United Earth Defense Force battleship hummed quietly around him, its crew going about their daily tasks with practiced ease, born from years of routine. "Another quiet day in paradise," Miller muttered, running a hand through his short gray hair. "You say that like it's a bad thing, sir," said Tom, his first officer, with a slight smile. "Quiet means safe." Miller nodded but couldn't help feeling a twinge of disappointment. He had joined the Space Force to explore, to discover, to make history. Instead, he'd spent his career staring at empty space and filing reports that nobody read. "Captain," called Lisa from the sensor station, her voice breaking the monotony. "I'm picking up an unusual energy signature at the edge of our patrol sector." Miller straightened in his chair, suddenly alert. "What kind of signature?" "Nothing I've ever seen before, sir. It's moving. And the pattern is too regular to be natural." The bridge crew all turned toward their captain, the same thought in everyone's mind. After centuries of wondering if humanity was alone in the universe, they might be about to find out. "Battle stations," Miller ordered calmly. "Not because I expect trouble, but because I want us ready for anything. And send the first contact greeting package we've been carrying around all these years." Red lights pulsed gently throughout the ship as the crew moved efficiently to their positions. The Indomitable might not be the newest ship in the fleet, but her crew was experienced, and the massive railguns and missile tubes that lined her hull were well maintained. "Energy signature is changing course, sir," Lisa reported. "It's heading straight for us." "Maintain position," Miller ordered. "Let's not appear threatening." On the bridge of the Vreen scout ship Analytical Precision, Commander Toll observed the human vessel with 6 of his 8 eyes. His gray skin rippled with the subtle color changes that indicated deep concentration as data streamed into his mind through the direct neural interface all Vreen commanders used. "The humans have detected us," noted his second, Lur, whose skin displayed the green flecks of mild concern. "Their vessel is activating defensive systems." Toll's skin remained calm blue. "Expected behavior. Any species would do the same. Begin full tactical analysis of their vessel." The Vreen had observed 17 different spacefaring civilizations from afar before making contact. In every case, they had first analyzed the species' technology, calculated their threat level, and developed perfect tactical models to ensure the Vreen maintained advantage if hostilities occurred. It was simply the logical approach. "They are transmitting a data package," Lear reported. "Analysis indicates basic mathematical sequences, visual representations of their species, and simple greeting protocols," said Mez, the communications specialist. "Standard first contact procedure as observed in other species." Toll nodded, the movement barely perceptible. "Begin processing their technological capabilities." The Vreen's quantum computers went to work, analyzing every detail of the human ship, its weapons systems, defensive capabilities, engine output, and structural weaknesses. Within moments, the computers had constructed over 10,000 potential combat scenarios. That's when something unusual happened. The tactical display flickered, then showed an error message Toll had never seen in his entire career. "ERROR. Pure dictate. Modeling. FAIL. You are insufficient data for behavioral analysis. Verify the system," Toll ordered, his skin now showing yellow spots of confusion. Lear worked quickly. "System is functioning correctly. The error is in the predictive algorithms." "Impossible," Toll stated. The Vreen's tactical prediction systems were perfect. They had modeled the behavior of every known species with 98% accuracy. "Sir," Mez interrupted, "the behavioral analysis subroutines are failing because the human ship is." He paused, skin rippling with confusion. doing something our systems cannot classify as rational. Toll stared at the readout. The human ship had deployed its weapons systems, but was holding position. Standard procedure. But the deployment pattern made no sense. The humans had left obvious weak points in their defensive configuration. No logical species would do that unless... It's a trap, Toll realized suddenly. They're intentionally showing weakness to lure us in. But our scans show the weaknesses are real, Lur said, bewildered. They're not fake vulnerabilities. Then why? Toll began, but the tactical computer interrupted with a new analysis. Warning. Human vessel TAC-TCs show 87% deviation from optimal configuration. Toll's skin paled to almost white. No species would intentionally use a suboptimal defensive position unless they knew something the Vreen did not. The logical conclusion was terrifying. Either the humans were tremendously stupid, or they possessed capabilities beyond anything the Vreen could detect. Send a message, Toll decided. Then withdraw immediately. Back on the Indomitable, Miller watched as the strange readings suddenly moved. "We're receiving a transmission, sir," Lisa said. "Audio only, translated through our first contact protocols." "Let's hear it," Miller ordered. A strange, mechanical voice filled the bridge. "We have analyzed your vessels. We withdraw. Do not pursue." Before Miller could respond, the energy signature accelerated at an impossible rate and vanished from their sensors. "What just happened?" Tom asked, looking as confused as everyone else on the bridge. Miller shook his head slowly. "I have no idea, but it seems our first alien encounter didn't go quite as planned." "Sir," Lisa spoke up hesitantly, "right before they left, I noticed something odd. They scanned us thoroughly, but their scan patterns kept changing, almost like they were confused by something." What could confuse an advanced alien species about our technology? Tom wondered. We're probably centuries behind them. Miller tapped his fingers on the arm of his chair thoughtfully. "Log everything. Every reading, every scan, every second of this encounter. And set course back to Earth. I think Command is going to want to hear about this personally." As the Indomitable turned toward home, Miller couldn't shake the feeling that something momentous had just occurred. Humanity's first alien encounter had lasted less than 15 minutes and ended with the aliens running away. It made no sense. What he couldn't know was that on the Vreen homeworld, 50 light-years away, the High Command was about to receive the most disturbing report in their 5,000-year history of space exploration. Commander Toll's words would send ripples of concern throughout their civilization. "We have encountered a species whose military behavior defies logical prediction. Recommend extreme caution in all future interactions with the beings called humans." 6 months after the strange first contact, Captain Jack Miller stood at the window of his temporary office on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. Earth's massive gas giant loomed in the black sky, its swirling storms visible even from this distance. But Miller wasn't looking at Jupiter. His eyes were fixed on the alien ship that had landed 3 days ago. The Vreen had returned, this time openly and with a message of peace. Still staring at them, Admiral Wilson asked as he entered the room. The Admiral was a tall man with dark skin and a serious face that rarely smiled. "I can't help it," Miller admitted. "Our first aliens, after all these years wondering if we were alone." Wilson nodded. "And now they want to talk. The diplomatic team is ready. You're coming, right?" Miller turned away from the window. "Wouldn't miss it." The meeting room was large and plain with a long table in the center. Humans sat on one side, Vreen on the other. Miller studied the aliens with interest. They were about human height but thinner, with gray skin that seemed to shift colors slightly as they moved. They had 8 eyes, 6 large ones arranged in a circle on their face, and 2 smaller ones on stalks that moved independently. Admiral Wilson led the human team. Across from him sat Ambassador Wren, the Vreen's chief diplomatic officer. Unlike the other Vreen, whose skin showed patterns of blue and green, Ren's skin remained a calm, solid gray. "We appreciate your willingness to meet with us," Ren said. His voice sounded almost human, though slightly mechanical. Miller guessed they were using some kind of translation device. "We're happy to welcome you," Wilson replied. "Though I admit we were confused by our first meeting. Your ship left rather abruptly." Several of the Vreen shifted in their seats, their skin flashing brief patches of yellow. Miller noticed that only Ren remained perfectly still. "Yes," Ren said after a pause. "That is partly why we have come. We wish to establish better understanding between our species." The meeting continued for hours. The Vreen explained they were part of a civilization that had explored space for thousands of years. They had encountered many other intelligent species and usually maintained peaceful relations with them. But Miller noticed something strange. Whenever the conversation turned to military matters, the Vreen became visibly uncomfortable. Their skin would ripple with yellow and orange patches, and they would quickly change the subject. During a break, Miller approached Admiral Wilson. "Have you noticed how nervous they get around our military personnel?" Wilson nodded. "I was going to ask them about it directly." When the meeting resumed, Wilson waited for a pause in the conversation, then spoke clearly. "Ambassador Ren, forgive my directness, but I've noticed your people seem uncomfortable discussing military matters. May I ask why?" The room went silent. For the first time, Ren's perfect gray coloration broke, showing brief flickers of orange. "Admiral," Ren said finally, "your observation is correct. We have a concern regarding human military tactics." "Concern?" Wilson asked. "We've made no threats." "No, you misunderstand," Ren said. "It is not fear of aggression, but rather," he seemed to struggle for words, "our species relies on advanced tactical prediction algorithms. These have helped us model the behavior of over 50 other spacefaring species with near-perfect accuracy. And," Miller prompted when Ren paused again, "and they fail completely when applied to humans," Ren admitted. "This is unprecedented in our history." On the other side of the Jupiter system, Dr. Alan Brooks peered through his microscope at a small piece of technology recovered from a derelict Vreen probe. The probe had been found drifting near Neptune's orbit shortly after the first contact incident, and Brooks had been studying it ever since. "Incredible," he muttered to himself. "What is it?" asked Jane, his research assistant. Brooks looked up, excitement clear on his face. "This isn't just a computer, it's a quantum prediction engine, far more advanced than anything we've built." He pointed to the tiny component. "From what I can tell, this thing can calculate trillions of potential outcomes in combat scenarios. It's like it can see the future, or at least all possible futures. So they can predict exactly what an enemy will do." Jane asked. "That's what's weird," Brooks said. "According to the data logs I've managed to access, it works perfectly against every species they've encountered, except us." Back on Europa, Admiral Wilson leaned forward. "Ambassador, are you saying you can't predict how we'll respond in combat?" "It is more than that," Ren said. "Your species routinely takes actions that our models calculate as having less than 0.1% probability of occurring. Actions that no rational military commander would choose." Wilson exchanged glances with Miller. "Can you give an example?" Ren's skin rippled. "Your defensive formations often leave obvious weaknesses exposed. Your attack patterns frequently ignore optimal targeting solutions. Your ships sometimes maintain power to non-essential systems during combat situations. These choices make no logical sense." "But they work for us," Miller pointed out. "Yes," Ren admitted. "That is what we cannot understand." Meanwhile, in a hidden room aboard the Vreen diplomatic vessel, Commander Tall ran simulation after simulation. On a large screen, virtual human ships faced off against Vreen vessels in a variety of scenarios. "Try again," Tall ordered his tactical officer, Mez. The simulation reset. This time, the Vreen ships executed a perfect flanking maneuver, cutting off the human vessel's escape route. According to every tactical doctrine ever written, the human should surrender or attempt a desperate breakout through the weakest point in the Vreen formation. Instead, the simulated human ships did something completely unexpected. 3 smaller vessels deliberately exposed their weakest points to Vreen fire, while the main battleship powered down all weapons and appeared to drift. Pause. Toll said, his skin showing patches of confused yellow. What are they doing? This makes no sense. Running historical analysis, Mez said. After a moment, his skin turned pale blue with surprise. Commander, this matches a tactic from human military history, something called a Trojan horse. They appear weak to lure the enemy into a trap. But our sensors would detect any trap, Toll argued. The humans know this, Mez said. Yet they use the tactic anyway. It's as if they're playing a game where they know the rules but choose to ignore them. Toll stared at the screen, his confusion turning to concern. A species that didn't follow logical rules of engagement was unpredictable, and unpredictable meant dangerous. We need more data, he decided. Propose joint military exercises to the diplomatic team. We must understand how these humans think. As the Vreen ship sent the message to Ambassador Wren, neither Toll nor his crew could have guessed just how much more confusing their interactions with humans were about to become. Joint military exercises. Admiral Wilson repeated, his eyebrows rising in surprise. You want our ships to engage in practice combat with yours. Ambassador Wren's skin remained carefully controlled, showing only the slightest ripple of color. With strict safety protocols, of course. No live weapons. We believe this cultural exchange would benefit both our species. The human delegation had gathered in the meeting room once again, this time to hear the Vreen's unexpected proposal. Captain Miller watched the aliens carefully, noting how their smaller eye stalks kept moving, watching each human's reaction. Wilson glanced at his team before responding. I'll need to consult with Earth Command, but speaking personally, I think it's a good idea. Wren's skin briefly flashed blue. Relief, Miller had learned. Excellent. We can begin preparations while awaiting your official response. After the meeting, Miller caught up with Wilson in the hallway. Sir, do you really think this is wise? We know almost nothing about their true capabilities. Wilson smiled slightly. That's exactly why we should do it, Jack. They're clearly worried about something to do with our tactics. This gives us a chance to find out what. 3 weeks later, 5 human ships met a small Vreen fleet in the space between Jupiter and Saturn. The Indomitable led the human forces, with Captain Miller in command. On the Vreen side, Commander Toll directed operations from his flagship, the logical conclusion. All ships report ready, Captain, Tom said from his station on the Indomitable's bridge. Good, Miller replied. Remember everyone, these are friendly exercises. All weapon systems are in simulation mode only. No matter what happens, no one fires a real shot. The first exercise was simple, basic maneuvers to understand each other's movement patterns. The human ships formed a standard diamond formation, while the Vreen vessels arranged themselves in a perfect hexagon. They're very precise, Lisa noted from the sensor station. Miller nodded. Almost too perfect. No variations at all. The ships moved through space, each side demonstrating turning ability, acceleration, and basic defensive positions. Miller noticed that the Vreen ships moved as if they were parts of a single machine, with timing so perfect it seemed impossible. Next exercise, announced the communication officer. Simulated attack and defense were designated as the defenders first. The Vreen ships began to move toward the human formation, spreading out in what Miller recognized as a classic encirclement pattern. It was textbook perfect, exactly what he would expect from a skilled commander. Prepare countermeasures, Miller ordered, but let's try something different. Tom, have the Defiant and the Resolute expose their starboard sides. Tom looked confused. Sir, that's their weakest point. Their shield generators are more vulnerable there. I know, Miller said with a small smile. Trust me. The two smaller ships moved as ordered, deliberately showing their most vulnerable sides to the approaching Vreen vessels. On the view screen, Miller could see the Vreen formation hesitate. Aboard the logical conclusion, Commander Toll stared at his tactical display in confusion. "What are they doing?" he demanded. "They're exposing their weakest points." "Perhaps it's a malfunction," suggested Lur, his second in command. "No," Toll said, his skin rippling with patches of yellow and orange. "They did this in our simulations too. It's deliberate." He turned to his tactical officer. "Mez, what does the prediction engine say?" Mez's skin had gone almost white. "Sir, the engine is giving contradictory results. It calculates a 97% probability that this is a trap, but also shows that there are no hidden weapons or ships in the area." Toll's eye stalks twitched in frustration. "How can it be a trap if there's nothing to spring it with?" "Unknown, sir," Mez admitted. "Proceed with caution," Toll ordered. "Reduce speed and approach at minimum power." Miller watched as the Vreen ships slowed, their perfect formation now hesitant and cautious. "Now," he ordered. "Full thrust to the Defiant and Resolute. Break formation and circle behind." The two smaller ships suddenly accelerated at maximum speed, their engines flaring brightly as they shot past the surprised Vreen vessels and looped around behind them. "Indomitable, full power to forward shields and advance," Miller commanded. The massive battleship surged forward, directly toward the center of the Vreen formation. In a real battle, this would be suicide, charging directly into the enemy's strongest point. But the unexpected move, combined with the two smaller ships now behind the Vreen, created confusion. "They're charging directly at us," Lur exclaimed, his skin flashing bright orange with alarm. "And the smaller ships have circled behind," Mez added. "The prediction engine can't calculate a response. This attack pattern has no logical basis." Toll fought to keep his skin color under control. "They're dividing our attention. We must." Before he could finish, the tactical display showed the Indomitable suddenly cutting all engine power. The massive human ship now appeared to drift, weapons powered down. "Now what are they doing?" Toll demanded. "Sir," Mez reported, "all power readings from the human battleship are minimal. They appear to be dead in space." "That's impossible," Toll said. "No commander would cut power in the middle of an attack." "Status report," Miller asked calmly as the Indomitable drifted toward the Vreen ships. "All systems nominal," Lisa reported. "We're running on minimal power as ordered. The Vreen ships are holding position." "They don't know what to do," Tom said with a grin. "They can't decide if we're setting a trap or having a malfunction." Miller nodded, and while they're trying to figure it out, he touched his comm button. "Defiant, Resolute, you may proceed." The two smaller ships that had circled behind the Vreen now powered up their weapon systems in simulation mode and registered direct hits on 3 Vreen vessels before they could react. "Exercise complete," Miller announced over the open channel. "I believe that's our point." Later, during the post-exercise briefing, the Vreen commanders sat in uncomfortable silence. Their skin colors shifted rapidly between yellow confusion and blue concern. "Your tactics," Toll finally said, addressing Miller directly. "They make no sense." Miller leaned back in his chair. "They worked, didn't they?" "But you exposed your weakest points," Toll insisted. "You charged directly into our strongest formation. You powered down your ship in the middle of an attack. These actions defy all logical military doctrine." Admiral Wilson, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. "Commander Toll, human military history is full of victories achieved through unexpected actions. Sometimes the least logical move is the most effective because the enemy doesn't expect it. But how do you decide which illogical action to take?" Toll asked, genuine confusion evident in his voice and the rapid color changes across his skin. "There are infinite possibilities." Miller exchanged a glance with Wilson before answering. "Sometimes we just go with our gut." The Vreen translators paused, apparently struggling with the phrase. When they finally produced the alien equivalent, all the Vreen commander's skin turned pale white at once. "You make tactical decisions based on digestive sensations," one of them asked in horror. Miller couldn't help but laugh. "It's just a saying. It means we trust our instincts, our feelings. Sometimes a decision feels right even if the numbers say otherwise." The Vreen commanders stared at the humans in silence. The concept of making military decisions based on anything other than perfect logical calculation was clearly disturbing to them. And as the briefing continued, Miller began to understand why the clever aliens might want to steer clear of human warships in the future. Dr. Alan Brooks stared at the screen in his lab, excitement making his hands shake slightly. After weeks of studying the Vreen tactical systems, he finally understood what made them so different from human military thinking. "Jane, come look at this," he called to his assistant. Jane walked over, pushing her glasses up on her nose. "What did you find?" "The key to the Vreen tactical systems," Brooks said, pointing to the complex diagrams on his screen. "Their entire military doctrine is based on perfect logical optimization. Their computers calculate every possible move and countermove. Then they always choose the mathematically optimal action." "Isn't that what any good military would do?" Jane asked. Brooks shook his head. "That's what I thought at first too. But human militaries don't work that way at all." He pulled up images from famous battles throughout human history. "Look at these examples. The Battle of Thermopylae, Napoleon at Austerlitz, the D-Day landings." He pointed to each image in turn. In each case, the winning side didn't choose the mathematically optimal path. They used deception, emotion, surprise, and what the Vreen would consider tactical insanity. Jane's eyes widened as she understood. "So when the Vreen try to predict what a human commander will do, they fail," Brooks finished, "because they're looking for logical decisions, and humans rarely make purely logical choices in battle." Admiral Wilson sat across from Ambassador Wren in a private meeting room. The joint exercises had been put on hold after 3 days of increasingly bizarre results. Each time, the human ships had done something unpredictable that had left the Vreen tacticians confused and, in some cases, alarmed. "Ambassador," Wilson said gently, "I think it's time we discussed what's really bothering your people about our military approach." Wren's skin remained carefully controlled, but the small eye stalks betrayed his discomfort by constantly moving. "Admiral, my superiors are concerned. Your species fights in ways we cannot understand." Wilson nodded. "Dr. Brooks has made some discoveries about your tactical systems that might explain why. With your permission, I'd like him to present his findings to a joint meeting." Wren hesitated, then gave the Vreen equivalent of a nod, a slight dip of all eye stalks at once. "Perhaps this would help us understand each other better." The next day, a large conference room was filled with both human and Vreen officers. Captain Miller sat near the front, noticing how the Vreen all clustered together on one side of the room, their skin showing various shades of nervous yellow and orange. Dr. Brooks stood at the front, looking both excited and nervous. This was, after all, the first scientific presentation to an alien species in human history. "Thank you all for coming," he began. "Over the past few weeks, I've been studying the Vreen tactical systems recovered from a derelict probe. What I discovered explains why our military approaches are so different." He displayed a simple diagram showing 2 paths between points A and B. One was straight, the other curved. "In any tactical situation, there are multiple possible actions," Brooks explained. "The Vreen system always chooses the mathematically optimal path, the straight line, if you will." Several Vreen nodded, their skin showing blue agreement. "But humans," Brooks continued, "rarely choose the mathematically optimal path. Our military history is filled with victories achieved through seemingly irrational decisions." He clicked to show a new image, a famous painting of Washington crossing the Delaware. This American general crossed a frozen river on Christmas night, when no rational army would be expected to move. The result was a surprise victory that changed the course of a war. Brooks showed more examples, explaining how human commanders throughout history had made decisions based on intuition, emotion, deception, and even superstition, all concepts foreign to the logical Vreen approach. Human military training, he concluded, actually incorporates unpredictability. We teach our commanders to sometimes choose suboptimal tactical positions deliberately to confuse enemies who might be predicting the logical response. The room was silent when he finished. The Vreen officers sat perfectly still, their skin now a uniform pale color that Miller had never seen before. Commander Toll broke the silence first. "Dr. Brooks, are you saying that humans intentionally choose inefficient strategies as a tactical advantage?" "Exactly," Brooks nodded. "Because the unexpected move is often the most effective." Ambassador Wren's eye stalks quivered slightly. In our culture, such behavior would be considered a sign of mental deficiency, not a tactical advantage. Admiral Wilson leaned forward. "Yet it works, doesn't it? Your prediction engines can't model our responses because we sometimes deliberately choose options your systems would consider too unlikely to calculate." "This explains much," Toll admitted, his skin now showing patches of blue understanding. "During our exercises, your ships would take actions our systems calculated as having less than 0.1% probability. We assumed our calculations were flawed." "They weren't flawed," Miller said. "They just assumed we would make decisions the same way you do, based on pure logic." One of the Vreen officers, who had remained silent until now, suddenly spoke up. "How do you decide which illogical action to take? The possibilities are infinite." The humans exchanged glances, unsure how to explain something that was so fundamental to their nature. "Intuition," Brooks finally said. "Experience. Creativity. Sometimes we choose actions specifically because they're unexpected. And sometimes," Miller added with a small smile, "we just try to think like our enemy and then do the opposite of what they expect." The Vreen officer's skin turned almost white. "You intentionally model our thought processes to then violate those predictions." Miller nodded. "That's a big part of human military strategy, yes." The Vreen fell silent again, their skin colors shifting rapidly as they processed this disturbing information. That evening, Ambassador Wren met privately with Admiral Wilson again. "I have reported our findings to the Vreen High Command," Wren said, his voice unusually solemn. "They are disturbed by the implications." "We mean no threat to your people," Wilson assured him. "This is just how humans approach problems." "I understand that now," Wren said, "but you must understand what this means from our perspective. For thousands of years, we have relied on our ability to predict and model the behavior of other species. It has kept us safe and secure." His eye stalks drooped slightly. "Humans are the first species we have encountered who deliberately defy prediction. To many of my people, this makes you more frightening than any aggressive species with predictable behavior." Wilson considered this carefully. "And yet, here we are, talking peacefully." "Yes," Wren agreed, his skin showing a new color pattern, one Wilson hadn't seen before. "Which is perhaps the most unpredictable thing of all." News spread quickly. Within weeks of the joint exercises between humans and Vreen, strange ships began appearing at the edges of the solar system. They kept their distance, observing but never approaching Earth or its colonies. Captain Jack Miller stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the main screen as it tracked yet another alien vessel that had appeared near Neptune's orbit. "That's the 5th different ship design we've detected this month," Tom said, standing beside him. "They're definitely not Vreen." Miller nodded. "And none of them respond to our greeting messages. They just watch." Admiral Wilson had called an emergency meeting at Europa Base. Representatives from Earth's major nations had traveled to Jupiter's moon to discuss the sudden interest alien civilizations were showing in humanity. Ambassador Wren entered the meeting room, followed by 3 other Vreen officials. Their skin showed calm blue patterns, but their eye stalks moved constantly, taking in every detail of the room. "Ambassador," Wilson greeted them. "Thank you for coming. I hope you can help us understand what's happening." Wren settled into a specially designed chair that accommodated the Vreen body structure. "Admiral, I believe I can explain. Word has spread throughout nearby space about our encounters with humans." "Word?" a Chinese representative asked. "You mean other species know about us now?" "Yes," Wren confirmed. "There is a network of spacefaring civilizations. Information is shared, especially about potential new contacts." Miller leaned forward. "And what exactly are they saying about us?" Wren's eye stalks dipped slightly. "The Vreen equivalent of discomfort. The primary point of interest is your military unpredictability. Several species who monitor our communications have expressed concern." "Concern," Wilson repeated. "We've shown no aggression toward anyone." "It is not aggression they fear," Wren explained. "It is unpredictability. You must understand, most advanced civilizations value order and logical progression. A species whose actions cannot be reliably predicted is disturbing." 3 days later, a message arrived from deep space. It was addressed not to any human government, but specifically to the Vreen diplomatic mission on Europa. Ambassador Wren requested an urgent meeting with Admiral Wilson and Captain Miller after receiving it. "There has been a development," Wren announced, his skin showing patches of both blue and yellow, mixed emotions that Miller couldn't interpret. "The Galactic Council has called an emergency session." "The what?" Wilson asked. "The Galactic Council," Wren repeated. "A cooperative body of 17 spacefaring civilizations that coordinates interstellar relations. Its existence was not previously shared with humans." Miller raised an eyebrow. "And they're having an emergency meeting about us?" "Yes," Wren confirmed. "They wish to establish an official classification for Earth." Wilson and Miller exchanged glances. "What kind of classification?" Wilson asked carefully. "That is yet to be determined," Wren said. "But the Council has requested that a human representative attend the session. They specifically asked for—" His eye stalks turned toward Miller, the commander of the ship from the first contact incident. 2 weeks later, Captain Miller found himself aboard the Indomitable, traveling far beyond the solar system. The Vreen had provided coordinates for a meeting point where a Council ship would transport them the rest of the way. "I still can't believe I'm going to represent all of humanity at an alien council," Miller said to Ambassador Wren, who traveled with him as a guide. "You were chosen because you personify the quality that has caught the Council's attention," Wren explained. "Your tactical decisions during both our first encounter and the joint exercises demonstrated the human unpredictability that so concerns many species." "And concerns you as well?" Miller asked. Wren's skin showed a complex pattern Miller hadn't seen before. "I have come to see it differently. What I first viewed as alarming, I now recognize as fascinating." Their conversation was interrupted by the appearance of a massive ship, unlike anything Miller had ever seen. It was shaped like a perfect disk, with no visible engines or weapons, yet it moved with impossible grace. "The Council transport has arrived," Wren said simply, as if such an incredible sight was routine. The Galactic Council chamber was enormous, with 17 different seating sections arranged in a circle. Each section was designed for a different species, some with atmospherics that would be deadly to humans. Force fields separated these areas while allowing visual contact. Miller stood with Wren in the Vreen section, feeling the weight of alien eyes upon him. Some of the species looked vaguely humanoid, while others were utterly unlike anything on Earth. Floating gas clouds, crystalline structures, and beings that seemed more like plants than animals. The central platform raised, and a being composed of what looked like liquid light addressed the gathering in a language Miller didn't understand. His translator device rendered the words into English. "This emergency session is called to address the classification of the newly discovered species from the third planet of star system 47,829, locally known as Earth and humans." The liquid light being continued. "Based on extensive analysis of the reports provided by the Vreen observers and confirmed by preliminary observations from other member species, this council proposes a new classification: logic divergent martial species, the only known spacefaring civilization whose military actions routinely defy optimal choice prediction. Murmurs spread throughout the chamber as the various species discussed this classification among themselves. "What does this mean exactly?" Miller whispered to Wren. "It means," Wren explained quietly, "that your species will be approached differently than others. Many trading ships will avoid human military vessels. Some species may refuse direct contact entirely." Miller frowned. "Because they're afraid of us." "Not afraid of aggression," Wren clarified. "Afraid of unpredictability. To many species, a threat they can predict is preferable to an unknown that they cannot." The council voted, and a classification was made official. As the session ended, representatives from various species approached Miller cautiously, their curiosity apparently overcoming their concern. One being, with 4 arms and skin that looked like polished metal, asked through a translator, "How do humans decide what to do in battle if not through logical optimization?" Before Miller could answer, another alien, this one resembling a tall insect, interrupted. "Is it true that you sometimes choose the least effective strategy intentionally?" Miller found himself surrounded by curious aliens, all asking questions about human decision-making. He did his best to explain concepts like intuition, gut feelings, and thinking outside the box, but many of these ideas simply didn't translate well. On the journey back to Earth, Miller sat with Wren in the observation lounge of the Vreen ship, watching the stars streak by. "I still don't understand why they're so afraid of us," Miller admitted. "Our weapons are probably primitive compared to theirs." Wren's skin rippled with blue amusement. "Captain, it is not your weapons that concern them. It is the fact that no one can predict what a human commander might do next." He gestured toward the stars. "Most conflicts in galactic history have ended through predictive resolution. Each side calculates the likely outcome, and the weaker party surrenders without fighting. But such calculations are impossible with humans." Miller smiled slowly as understanding dawned. "So our unpredictability is actually our greatest strength." "Indeed," Wren agreed, "though I would not recommend mentioning that to the council." As the ship approached Earth, Wren presented Miller with a formal document, the Friendship Treaty between humans and Vreen. "My people have decided," Wren explained, "that while we may find humans terrifying in combat, we recognize the value of having unpredictable allies." Miller took the document with a grin. "I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship." "Ah," Wren said, his skin showing patches of confusion. "Another unpredictable human saying I do not understand." Miller just laughed, thinking how strange and wonderful it was that humanity's place in the galaxy had been secured not by the strength of their weapons or the advancement of their technology, but by their ability to be unpredictably, irrationally, and uniquely human.